Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. On its website, the Madison County Employment and Training Department states that it is the most comprehensive employment resource. For business, they provide labor management information, a place to describe jobs available, a place to describe upcoming job fairs. They assist with applicant assessment and recruiting, and they offer plant layoff and closure support. They show job seekers how to create a successful resume, match skills with businesses looking for qualified workers, teach people proper job search methods, provide space for on-site job interviews, plus they offer assistance in other key areas. Our guest today is David Stoecklin, the Executive Director of Employment and Training Department. Mr. Stoecklin serves as a member of the Madison and Bond Workforce Investment Board. He's a past president of the Illinois Workforce Partnership and of the Consortium of Vocational Educators and Employers. David Stoecklin, welcome to Conversation.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's quite a resume.
Well,
they give you any help making that thing?
No, they didn't give me any help, and I get paid no more.
So, you have a long history. Why don't we just go and just start with you first as to what, because you've seen a lot of things happen since the early 1970s in Madison and Madison County and throughout Illinois that has to do with employment and workforce. So rather than me go on, you start in.
Okay. Well, I started in 1975, actually. The department had already been formed, and it was formed under the Emergency Employment Act. And that act was basically there to combat high unemployment, or what was perceived as high unemployment back in the early 70s. Nixon signed it into law in 71, and it was triggered by unemployment hitting 4.5%. And
say that again?
4.5%.
So in those days, during the Nixon, I guess the Ford administration, 75, 4.5% unemployment was considered high.
High. And if it reached 6, there were other triggers within the bill that would increase the amount of public support for jobs. I was brought in at a point in 1975 where we were looking to transition to more business kinds of services. I had worked in the private sector, and I was brought in to provide business services. What
would these services be like?
Well, at that time we had on-the-job training, and we had a crew, if you will, of people who had been working and were looking for employment in the private sector. And my job was basically to interface with business and provide that link. So in, I guess about 76 or so, we saw another infusion because unemployment had reached higher levels. And during that period of time, we expanded the number of public service employees we had. Those folks needed to move out into the private sector. We know that's where job growth is at, particularly with small business. And again, my job was to interface with them and try to make that connection. Describe
what you remember about the business climate in Madison County in the 70s, in particular Alton, Granite City area.
Well, we were much more of an industrial center. You've heard the term Rust Belt. I think that aptly describes some of what you saw happen throughout the Midwest, but Madison County in particular had a really thriving steel industry. We had several refinery operations and
steel
and
ball bearings, boxes.
Well, sheet metal for cars. Frames were stamped out for the Ford plant here in Madison County. The glass works, and a lot of those places are by the boards now, no longer operating and looking for some use for those locations. You know, we've had some regrowth. We've had stimulation in the steel. U.S. Steel has brought a lot of money into the area, and as we all know, ConocoPhillips made a huge investment in their refinery over the last, well, I guess almost 2 years now.
At one time, there were, what, 3 refineries in that area?
There were 3 operations, Shell, Amoco, and we had what became Clark. The BP, or the Amoco BP plant, is now looking to, repurpose itself. In fact, there's an initiative going on right now that's going to take a look at that facility and the entire Route 3 corridor and what we might be able to do to stimulate manufacturing again in that area.
I noticed when this whole Keystone Pipeline issue came up, I was looking at some of the maps of all these existing pipelines. Some of that comes right here to Madison County, doesn't it? I mean, this is like a terminus for oil coming from other parts of the world.
Well, one of those comes right to the Wood River refinery for ConocoPhillips, and we've been very fortunate to have that happen. In fact, I think the discussion that goes on right now in D.C. about the new pipeline could have a direct effect on us.
That's what I was going to say, that oil or shale oil or whatever it is that's coming from Canada is eventually going to wind up and be worked right there at some of those plants that you're describing in the Wood River area.
Right. And if the new pipeline goes in, some of that might actually bypass Wood River and go all the way to the Gulf. So, you know, either way, I think we're well positioned with the ConocoPhillips plant. And we also have a very good community college system that has put together training programs that address their workforce needs. Lewis and Clark in particular, in combination with Southern Illinois University and their ERTC, their Environmental Resource Training Center, have trained operators that can always find employment either in the public sector, in water plants, or with the refinery.
So now moving forward from the the mid-70s where you started in, what has changed? What has occurred? Let's just go from there, say, to about 1990 or the mid-90s.
Well, the mid-90s saw, I think that's when we had lost the majority of those industrial jobs. Glass Works, we had lost General Steel, obviously. American Steel had gone up and down, but we were more of a transit hub at that point. I think that's when the plans were starting to develop for the logistics industry that we now see down in the American bottoms.
What do you call the logistics industry?
Well, the warehousing, trucking. I
think Hershey's has a plant
Hershey's
in there.
is down there.
Dial.
Procter Gamble. There's a lot of stuff that's stacked in those warehouses that's loaded on trucks and shipped throughout the Midwest. And we're very fortunate. Madison County has some of the best 4 R's, runways, roadways, ways. And what we try to do is make sure that we market that, because if you have goods to push out throughout the country, we are, I think, within 300 miles of at least 30% of the population in this country. Memphis and other areas up and down the Mississippi are also, you know, doing a good job of that. And I think with the expansion of the Panama Canal, we could in fact see an increase in the amount of transportation and logistics that happen here in Madison County.
So, so the 90s saw this decline in old industries, transition. What is your organization doing through this period of transition?
Well, we're trying to stay with the basics, and I think we all know that healthcare is an industry that will continue to grow and be stable. And we're also taking a look at IT and some of the high-tech kinds of industries. But the other thing I think we need to be aware of is the decline in the trades. Not that they themselves decline, but the number of folks that are available to work in those various careers are getting scarcer. As that workforce gets older and older, we need to prepare for that. And one of the initiatives of our workforce board is to take a look at that and to try to work with schools, parents groups, and educators to make sure that our young folks are aware that there's some great opportunities out there for electricians, plumbers, as well as carpenters, riggers, and all the other kinds of trade activities that have always been in Madison County.
Boomers are starting to move out of the workforce, aren't they? I mean,
yes, they are.
Some of the older boomers are, what, in their late 60s by now? And so, you know, they're either retired or getting ready to retire. But some of the jobs that they do are quite technical. Those folks were very well trained in their day. I'm wondering today, the kids who are coming to you and are prepared to, okay, find me a job, Dave, would ya? And then you have them use a ruler. It's like, what's that? Talk about that. I mean, seriously, I've had other people in this chair who have talked about that very topic as to they don't even know how to use measuring tools.
Well, and that's true. And some of the basic skills, what they like to call STEM now, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Oh, that's an interesting term. That's my first exposure to that.
Well, STEM has gotten a lot of conversation in the national forums, and it's something that we really need to improve on. We take a look at, in this country, roughly 325 million people. Of that number, less than half have a full college education. And then you take a look at a country like India, where 300,000 people already have a college education. We're competing against a lot of well-educated, well-prepared individuals. We don't see as much of that. It's much easier now to say, oh, I won't take that hard physics class, or I'll bypass algebra or calculus. We really need to emphasize those skills, because that's what's going to build the future for us. As you mentioned, a lot of jobs are much more technical than they ever were before. And the point is, to be able to handle those and to work in those careers, you need those basic skills, which are math and reading skills.
Well, see, America, I mean, we don't do grunt labor anymore. At least we don't do it very well. I mean,
Right.
there's places where they can pay $1 or $2 a day to get grunt labor done. Here we do stuff like, our steel industry is not basic steel, but it is specialized steel.
Right.
And so you have to have specialized skills to do that. So just describe what your organization talks. Do you talk to teachers? You talk to superintendents? What is the conversation like there?
Well, one of the things we do, and we're in the 5th year of this, is we bring industry into schools. We do what we call connecting education and business.
To talk to the children, or talk to the adults?
Talk to the kids, and obviously you're going to talk with the teachers at the same time. And what we try to do is let them know about the opportunities that exist right here. There are a lot of opportunities for good jobs. We have jobs that we can't fill. And
Like just a few, or not a few specific jobs, but a few categories of jobs.
Well, the technicians that make many of these highly sophisticated machines work are in short supply. There are manufacturing jobs that go wanting. Now, not all of them are in Madison County, but when you take a look at manufacturing across the board, it's so much more of it's robotics, it's high tech, it's numeric controls, and those kind of things require people with a higher level of math skill and understanding of physics to not only work them, but to work on them. Mm-hmm. And so those are the kinds of jobs that go begging. Another one that would surprise a lot of people, there are jobs out there for welders. Welding has become sort of a lost career to a lot of folks. It's not necessarily the most attractive job. You know, it's hot at times, it's cold at others, there's sparks flying, but it's a job that has...
pays pretty well, doesn't it?
It pays well, and it's got a future. There's certain things we can't offshore, and one of the ones I like to point out is plumbing. You're not going to pull your toilet up and ship it to a call center in India. So, you know, you have to have folks who understand things. There's the gentleman that does this show on Discovery Channel, Dirty Jobs, did a great a great testimony to Congress about what was needed. In fact, it's on YouTube, and I should have brought that URL with me, but I didn't. But I think you can Google it and find it, or do the search engine on YouTube. And in 8 minutes, he really gave an impassioned plea for what's needed. He talked first about his grandfather, which reminds me of my father and my father's brothers, who were people who understood how things worked. And by having that understanding, they could work on a lot of that themselves.
They could use tools.
They could use tools.
They understood how houses or buildings were put together, or how an engine was supposed to function.
Exactly. And in describing that, he took us forward to the present day, where he had a problem with his plumbing and called a plumber and left a check on the table for the landlord to pay him when they got done doing their work. And he even admitted his understanding wasn't there the whole process, but he did know he had a well-behaved and functioning toilet when he came home. Mm-hmm. You know, we've moved to that. We don't value, again, it's one of the things I think our workforce board is most involved with and has a passion for, and that's to start to appreciate those jobs and give that appreciation to the community, to respect those careers, and to try to bring our kids into those kind of jobs.
So when you're when your industry people, when your team members are in the schools talking to the students, talking to the adults, what's their response to, well, be a welder, be a plumber, be somebody who uses your hands, but you'll make, what, $15 to $30 an hour maybe?
Oh, you can find a $30 an hour plumber. You give me his number, Lee. I'd
Is
like
it
to
really?
have
Okay, I've lost track. Is it that high? So
it's a very well paid.
and you can be your own boss. You don't have to work for somebody once you get good at it. Once you have a master's ticket, you know, or whatever it's called.
Once you complete the journeyman's card.
Right.
Right.
And so you can run your own business. You run your own hours.
You can go several ways. You can work out of the hall, or you can, as you say, start a business. I've got a friend who's an electrician, who, very bright guy, was in college for a while, decided he understood electricity, and he opened up his own shop. He's a card-carrying journeyman from IBEW, and he hires a couple folks for jobs that he bids. He's got a great life. Now, I'm not going to say he doesn't work hard. He does. Because not only does he do the electrical work, he runs a business.
He's got the books to do.
Yeah.
He's got the federal government to deal with.
That's true. But to get back to what your question was, and what happens, what do these kids do? Well, the kids will listen fairly courteously, but you know, the other thing we keep hearing, I want to be a rock star. I want to be a video game designer. Because all of those things sound so much cooler than I want to be an electrician.
Let me tell you about video game designer. This is a very, very technical field where math is primary. If you don't have an excellent understanding, and if you don't have the ability to learn new math while you're doing your business, you're not going to be a video game designer.
Right. Well, and that's one of the areas we have a hard time finding somebody to speak to, because they're all in Silicon Valley designing, you know, the latest and greatest Deathmatch 4000 or whatever it might be. But the kids are there as any kid would be. I mean, they are a vessel, and we're trying to fill them up with the right ideas. The real challenge, I think, is in their homes, in convincing their parents, because what did we all hear? You'll have it better than I did. You'll go to college. Well, we could have a large ranking of college unemployed if we don't watch ourselves. Many of the jobs that are going to be available, and good jobs, family-sustaining jobs, are going to be ones that require technical skills. So an associate degree from a community college could serve one just as well as a four-year fine arts degree.
Well, just talk about what you have observed of, quote, middle managers over the last couple of decades. What's happened to them?
Well, they come into our shop looking for reemployment or job opportunities.
These are the ones that went to college, have business degrees, but suddenly the business found out that they weren't earning enough money to keep them on staff.
And whatever the reason might be, there are a lot of folks that were in middle management that were let go during our lean, mean times that are out there looking for jobs right now. And again, as I said, they are looking in many cases to retrain or to get technical skills that they can take back into the marketplace. One of the places where there's going to have to be a future, and that's in energy, in either the green economy or the energy economy, whatever you want to call it. I listened this morning to the news, and they're predicting $5 a gallon gas. And we might be close to that now, particularly on the West Coast for premium fuels. The point is, we're going to have to address this issue. And there's going to be jobs that are created from that, whether it be electric, whether it be cars, wind and solar power, whatever it might be, even coal to gas, whatever. We are going to have opportunities. And again, it gets back to what I said, that's STEM, which is science, technology, energy. And what you got to do, and the mechanical side of that is also included. People have to be able to use math skills, to use science skills to address these problems of the future. We've always been a land of innovation. One of the books I want to read, and I've got to dig this thing up, it was talked about on one of the local radio talk shows, had to do with our golden age of invention. And that's what we do. Is this country figures out better ways to do things. That's how we put some of our manufacturing jobs by the boards.
Now, you mentioned that there was a number of middle managers and plenty of others who, in this last crash, they didn't do so well. And so now the government is up to 99 weeks of unemployment. Do you find that some percentage of these people who are on unemployment are riding it out to the end and then are ready to take those jobs that you have described? Or are they really seriously, I mean, they're trying, but nobody will give them a break?
I think there are a lot of folks who tried very hard for very many weeks and became frustrated. Now, that 99 weeks of unemployment no longer exists.
Oh, I thought that...
Well, the most recent will take it to 73, I believe.
Right. You would know more than me.
Well, I hope I never really have to test it out and find out. But the point is that a lot of these folks go through a cycle, like everything in life. They probably were out there hitting it hard right after they found out. Then they got rebuffed so many times, and it got to the point where they were somewhat discouraged. Keep in mind, when we report unemployment, it's the number of people who are actually actively seeking and reporting. Our unemployment rate's higher than what we are told every day, because that does not include underemployed and people who have stopped looking, as you talked about. The point is this, though: most of these folks have made an excellent, good faith effort to try to find employment, but the jobs they had in the past are not the jobs of the future. And again,
they had a decent life, and now they're being asked to take something, or something that maybe doesn't pay as well, or like you said, your friend who goes from college to suddenly manual labor, they have to work harder.
Right. And I don't think people in this country are afraid of hard work with appropriate compensation. But I think what's happened is we're dealing in one of the best job markets for a business that you could have right now. There's some very talented people out there, and they are willing to work in jobs that they might not have considered 5 years ago. The other thing that's really affecting us, and this is a statistic I heard not too long ago, is that 50% of all of our 19-year-olds have never had a job. Now, they might have
never had a job.
Never. They might have taken out the trash, they might have mowed the lawn at home, but they haven't had a job. And that attacks
now,
us.
let me ask you, what about you? When you were 19, had you had a job?
I had had a job since I was 13.
Exactly. I worked in an industrial plant at times. I was, delivered, well, in those days we had, newspaper boys. That was me. Made good money at it, babysitting. It is possible to earn money. To get to 19 without ever having had a job you must have worked at that.
Well, our parents were in a position not to require it. But what's interesting about that is also the number of jobs. You talked about baby boomers. Well, let's take it beyond that. There are a lot of folks who are now taking jobs that normally went to teenagers who are senior citizens, who have got to a position in life where they, whoa, I'm going to run out of money if I don't.
Greeters at Walmart.
Greeters at Walmart.
You see them behind the counter at McDonald's.
Many of them are cashiers. I mean, I don't care what store you go to, you're going to find somebody that you would have thought 10 years ago, well, this person's going to be retired. And that's not the case. With the collapse of some of the financial markets, with the decline.
Took their pension with them?
Took a pension or took a 401 with them. There's a different kind of situation out there. We talked about healthcare earlier. It's a classic example. You could always find a job as a nurse, right? We all knew that. But that actually tightened up for a while because nurses weren't willing to go ahead and move to another job when they had a secure one here. So that transitional job market that was out there pretty much dried up for a period of time.
We got about 5 minutes left. I told you time goes by fast here.
Yes, it does.
If there's anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure people hear, go ahead and talk about it now.
Well, one of the things I'd like to make sure they know about is that we provide services out in the community. On Friday, March the 16th, we're going to have a workshop at 1:30 in the Edwardsville Library. And that workshop is basically to help people plan a career search. So folks who are in the job market will have the opportunity to come in and talk to some of my staff about resumes, all of the kinds of online tools that are available for a job search. And in Granite City on Thursday, April 5th, we will be doing that as well at their library, and that's again at 1:30.
You do this on a regular basis? It's just not this March and April. You mean this goes on?
We've had them at both the Edwardsville Library and the Granite.
You guys have a website, don't you? Could you just say what your website is?
Well, IllinoisWorkNet.com. Illinois spelled out, work, worknet.com
Okay.
will get anyone in the Metro East area to one of our locations. And then I also wanted to point out on September 13th, and I know that's a long way away, but we are having our 21st Jobs Plus Job Fair at the Gateway Center in Collinsville. And we're very proud of that for 21 years we've been able to fill that auditorium with employers and with people looking for work. Another thing that I'd like to make sure that I mention is that if you go to that IllinoisWorkNet.com, it doesn't matter if you live here or if you live in St. Clair County, you live in Clinton County or Bond County, you'll be able to find an office that can serve your needs, particularly in retraining and career guidance. And that's one of the things we didn't really get into, but that is a big portion of our service. We'll sit down with someone, talk to them about their skills, their experiences, and from that, we're going to be able to help them form a career plan. And that career plan is a job plan.
Within, say, somebody comes to you and they give you 2 years to get trained, can they find a decent job if they'll give you 2 years of training?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
how much less than 2 years can they get something decent?
Well,
or is it really going to take them about 2 years of retraining?
You know, I can't make a generalization. It depends on the basic skills that they bring. But as an example, one can get certified in welding in a year. Mm-hmm. You can go to a community college program, and in that case, within a year, they'd have a marketable skill. You talked about someone with a college degree. Well, depending upon what that degree is in, that'll give us some background, and they might be able to move into a healthcare position or healthcare.
Is age an issue at this point? I mean, if
it's always an issue.
I showed up, and I'm an old man, but if I showed up and said, "Hey, Dave, I want to keep working. I want to do something else," is it possible that I could get into welding or nursing or something like that, and I would be accepted at my age?
I think so. I think you'd also, as I said, everyone's different, but what physical limitations might someone have? You know, I think
as long as you're physically up to it.
If you're physically capable, I don't see it as an impairment. Now, there are going to be jobs where obviously younger folks are going to hold the advantage. If it's hard physical labor, no. But if it's something that requires skills, and skills that you might have as an older adult, which is teamwork, the ability to listen, to follow instructions, to work in a team, you could have a real advantage. And again, as I said, a lot of those jobs that kids used to take that are going to older folks also allow them the opportunity to move up within an organization. If you're a really good greeter, who knows? Then you're a cashier, then you're a manager of a section, and the next thing you know, you've got a better job.
Good news. Thank you very much. I appreciate your being with us today. And
well,
folks, I've been speaking with David Stoecklin. He spent a lot of time talking to you about what you can do in order to improve your situation. I hate to say it this way, it's not hopeless. I guess there is hope. Go and talk to them. Go to that website and see what they have. Go to one of their job fairs. Thank you very much. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week.